it was. I do think, and also, and this kind of ties into education, and I am kind of interested in your thoughts on this a little bit. Like schooling, elementary school till middle school, maybe even beyond, just wasn't a good fit for. I feel like a young boy. I was smart enough to be able to get through and do the things I needed to do, but to sit in a classroom and pay attention was just. Nowadays they call it ADD, and I don't know where I would have fallen on that spectrum, but paying attention and just wasn't sitting in a church pew for half hour or whatever it was. I was such an active, my energy, go, my mind's, to just sit and focus and pay attention. I think schools kind of fail young boys in a lot of ways in that, but I don't know the solution either. And it wasn't till probably somewhere in the middle of high school where my body settled down enough where I could mature enough to start focusing and I need to start really paying attention. Were you similar that way as a child, or?
In the first grade, my first grade teacher tied me in the seat with rope because I wanted to go around and explore.
Right.
So the ADA probably was me. By the time I was in the 7th grade, I was in the next to the lowest division. And yet my IQ said that I was one of the smartest kids in the school. So I was constantly taking IQ tests because they couldn't figure out why I was doing so poorly in school.
Right.
And yet I had an intelligence that said I should be doing very well. And it was probably what you were saying. I couldn't focus. I was a poor reader. I hated reading.
Right.
And so we were doing a mechanical IQ test that all students would take. For example, it would show a gear going this way, and a gear going this way, and a gear going, in which direction would it go? If you had pulleys doing this. And I remember the guidance counselor, who became a good friend, Nelson Nielsen, kept stopping and looking at me, and I'm thinking, does he think I'm cheating? What's going on? And this is a long test. And he called me into the office afterwards, and he showed me. I got one wrong out of this IQ test on engineering. And he said, and yet you're in the next to lowest division. What's going on here? So he gave me a battery of tests. And so I'm going into the 9th grade, and I was going to be in the general courses. There were 3 general, business, and then college. Right. And I was put in the lowest division of the college. And I still got my normal rank card, which was a couple of B's, mostly C's, and a D. I got a D in Latin. I hated Latin. Hated it. The teacher was horrible. And I didn't memorize. I didn't want to memorize.
Right.
I just, and so from then on, in high school, B's and C's. Let's see. So when asked what schools to go to, my junior year, Nelson took 8 kids with him to see Maine Maritime Academy. And we walked around and toured it. And not that I was overwhelmed with it, but I thought, well, that would be a possibility to apply. Now, my SATs, I got 580 in math and maybe 420 in English.
Mm-hmm.
But then SATs were really accurate, but you had no way to study.
Right.
You didn't study for them.
Right. Right.
So that was college level. I could have gotten the University of Maine or, anywhere. And SATs were basically what it was. And I got accepted at Maine Maritime Academy. I remember Jerry said, "You're not going to get in, you're not going to get in, you're a dummy." And she's holding the letter and I opened it and I got in. So to answer your question, yes, I probably was very much like you.
Right.
In other words, I had the aptitude,
Right.
but I didn't, schools weren't equipped to teach me properly.
Right.
And they probably still aren't.
Right. Yeah, I look back and if I think back if I applied myself more, I tell the girls, even though this class doesn't feel important, it's snowballing into, you do well in this class, and then later on, when you're writing essays later on, because you were so proficient here. And I think back, if I was better in grammar earlier on, but it's like, it wasn't going to happen.
Now, and it's very interesting to show that I had the aptitude. When I started at Duke, everything was writing. I mean, everything.
Right.
The longest paper I ever wrote was a 5-page essay on economics at Maine Maritime Academy. I mean, I didn't know how to write. And I remember in Old Testament, which was one of the hardest courses I ever had in my life. I mean, I won't go into it, but it was just beyond. I mean, I would literally study 20 to 30 hours a week just on that one course. It was incredibly difficult. And the first exegesis I had to write, which is taking a passage and explaining it and understanding it, and footnoting your sources and so forth. And the proctor, which are PhD students who help the professor, called me in and said, "You don't know how to write." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, I don't." And he said, "Well, you can't just write 5-word sentences, declarative. You need to share what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and expand it." That's the first time anybody told me. And I started doing very well at that.
Right.
Because I had the aptitude, I didn't understand how.
Right.
Nobody taught me.
Or you weren't able to learn at the time that it was taught.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I've often thought that, you see these movies or you understand the apprenticeship approach where you take a young boy or a young girl at a certain age and you put them into an environment where they're immersed in it would probably be a better way to teach.
Right.
To where public education came from, if I understand, England had a poor model of it and it transported over here, and because of the revolution they thought, well, everybody should have access to education. So it went away from the apprenticeship system to everybody's in the classroom doing the same thing at the same time.
Right.
And I understand, isn't Melissa having a problem because she has 5 students who are at different levels?
I think every teacher deals with it now that you're given a paper that says this is this.
You can't. We're all different, and we have to. So there's got to be a better system than public education.